isn't it? So that gives you an identity, showing your creativity. Now, like for me, this is showing my creativity because I'm like, I want to be different. Yeah, I want to have maybe bangles all over my hand. Today I was coming to Kabarak University. I was told this is a very religious place. So I said I toned down. So guys, today I've really toned down. So otherwise, if I could have come here in my full creativity, you could have wondered, hey, is this a doctor? Then also arts and culture comes as a learning tool. We just had two presentations by all the two professors telling us how arts and culture is a learning tool and a means in itself. Even Evelyn told us the same thing. Because when we use art, when we use dance, when we use even painting, we are able to communicate. Children especially, when they are told, draw your father and mother, you draw your family. You have seen those videos going around that a child drew the father, the mother, and the sisters. But they drew the father at the back, not holding hands together. And then they are asked, who is that on the side? They say, that's dad. Why aren't they holding hands? Because when we go to church, mommy holds our hands and daddy is not going with us to church. Isn't it? And that communicates a lot of things. So in that family, we can say, in that family, their family tradition is it is the mother who goes with the children to church. Isn't it? Men, don't feel attacked. Then there's entertainment and leisure. We just love arts and culture for entertainment and leisure. Kujiburudisha, to make us feel like we need a break. We've worked so hard. We need a break. We need to enjoy the company of each other. Others now, on a very personal level, the importance of arts and culture in education at an individual level is it helps develop self-esteem and confidence. It has been studied and it has been proven that children and adults who practice drama and music and sports are more confident and have a higher self-esteem than those ones who do not participate generally in extracurricular activities. It can also enhance academic achievements because when somebody is stressed with the mathematics, they go there and they do the sport, they come back, they feel like now my head is free. Now I can focus here. Also, when you think of even music, even if home is stressful to the children, when they go and they perform in the choir, they perform the folk dance, they kind of forget their sorrows. And this is just not in children, even in adults. It helps us forget our sorrows. I know some of us, those who like going out, you think that it is the alcohol that you're taking that's making you forget your sorrows. No, it's the music that you are listening to in that space. If you listen to that same music at home under a tree, you'd feel the same way without that alcohol. Then it also encourages awareness and empathy and appreciation of difference and diversity and the view of others. When we dance, I teach dance. And a lot of times, after students have graduated, even 5, 10 years later, of all the units I have taught them, they always forget directing, production, anything I teach them. They just remember, this was my dance teacher. Yet I've taught them everything in film. But this is the one they remember because there was that closeness, awareness, because when we are teaching dance, you don't just stand here and instruct. Sometimes when they're dancing in a group, you'll hold one student and show them, okay, now let's do this. And you leave that student and you show them, or then you say, now let's start, So it creates that connection and self-awareness. And they're able to understand, okay, my shoulders are maybe hanging on one side, my posture is not right. When I'm dancing with somebody, I need to, it gives them that self-awareness about their body, their posture, concentration and all that. And that is one thing that arts give us. Even if it is just fashion, fashion gives us a self-awareness. What kind of colors do you like? If you go to your wardrobe, what colors do you see the most? Someone might ask you, what's your favorite color? And you say you don't know. But if you look at your wardrobe, you will tell us whether it is black or it is red or it is green. That color which you pick unconsciously. Maybe you pick it unconsciously because your mother used to like such a color. Maybe because you believe bright colors are better, or because you believe dark colors are better. Or maybe, like many Kenyans, you feel like we should be dressing official almost all the time because the British colonized us, isn't it? Or you feel like, as a woman, I should be dressing bright because in my culture, my mother, my grandmother, we need to be dressing like that. There are those ladies who don't wear trousers because in their culture, women are not supposed to wear trousers, isn't it? And with that self-awareness, you live your life having lived within that culture, living within your past, consciously and unconsciously, and understanding and respecting other people's opinion because you also want your opinion to be respected. Arts and culture helps us have personal growth, like even reading skills. When we read our stories, we are able to understand, one, what is my accent? What is my dialect? Am I able to communicate well? When you keep reading and everybody's like, it makes you feel like, okay, I think I need to improve on my tonation or my accent, isn't it? Creative and critical thinking. You find that students who are involved in extracurricular activities think faster and on the go. Because when you are performing, there is not always a chance to stop and think. You have seen the music festivals and the drama festivals. You have seen people's costumes drop down. Do they have time to think like, nichukue ama nisichukue? They always go on dancing. Or they pick it and they run out of the stage and they come back, isn't it? Meaning it gives that is the critical and creative thinking. Because you don't stand there stranded and people start laughing. You make it feel like it's part of it, part of the performance. And that is a skill that people carry with them throughout life. So that if something happens, you think very fast, on the go. You don't start thinking, what will I do? What will I say? And maybe it is just this vase that has fallen down. And you're wondering, actually that water is pouring down. Imagine that water is going everywhere. Instead of picking it very fast, these are skills that arts and culture practices helps us with. It cultivates skills such as observation and collaboration. Most of our art practices are done in groups. It creates an ensemble. We learn to collaborate. We learn to work with each other. We learn to listen to each other. We learn to be listened to also, so that people expect you to speak, to contribute. And when people expect you to contribute, it means you also have to be very what? Active. You cannot be in the group and you are not contributing, because people will feel like, where is your contribution? Are you owning it? Then it helps with reflection, creativity, and adaptability. When we expose our students to arts and culture, they are able to adapt in a different environment. A lot of us, by the time our children reach class 8, after doing the exam, they go to boarding. If your child was in a school where there was no extracurricular activity, you'll realize they find it very hard to adjust to boarding life. And you keep asking yourself, what is so hard? Why can't they adjust? This child is always crying. The teachers are telling, this child is always crying. They are always like lonely. They don't want to talk to people. It's because they were never involved in activities that made them connect to people. And simply sports, simply drama, simply music. Because you took the child to a school that said, dawn very early, prep still late, break time, let's read, there's no time for extra curricular activities. But that is the only moment where the child learns about the other person's culture. You know, when I went to campus the very first time, I was in a room of 4 people. One girl was a Maragoli. And for like 1 week, we could not talk, because we were both scared. So one day we were left, just the 2 of us, at around 8 p.m. at night. Then I asked her, I said, today is today. I'm not going to sleep without asking this question. I asked, is it true that Maragolis eat people? And she said, hiya. Even as we were told, Luos eat people. So we are 2 people here thinking that the other one can eat the other, because back in my place, we were told that Maragolis eat people, you know, the way because Maragolis also keep cows. And I don't know, they inject the neck and they drink the blood like Maasais. That's what we're told. So we're told that is what they will do to you when you sleep. They will drink your blood. And even them, they were told, even Luos, they also eat people at night. So we were 2 of us seated here pretending to be reading. But because of that culture shock that we had been told about, we were able to break that myth by starting to talk. Are we together? So when you look at the power of communication, the question is, where did I get that story? I definitely got that story by interacting with people in my home area. You get it? Who wanted to believe that Luos are the most good people, hawana shida mbaya ya kukula watu, it is those Maragolis, isn't it? And I communicated with them, and it stuck in my mind. You get it? And even them in their place in Maragoli, they were told that Luos eat people. So it is those stereotypical myths that come with it. And they are not bad myths. All myths are good because it helps us create perceptions of people that because of education you can come and find out whether is it true or a lie. And sometimes, of course, it's true, isn't it? Because we can't pretend. We think that Nigerians are witches. Do we have witches in Kenya? Is there a community in Kenya that does not have witches? But we want to believe Kambas are more witches. Like Dawaya, our Kamba Kamute is worse than the others, isn't it? Yet every Kenyan community has got witches. Where I come from, we have got those ones, we call them cameramen. If they look at you like this, if you are eating, then you just have stomach and you can die, stomach problem. So the only way to cure that is if you realize one of those cameramen are passing by, what you are eating, you ensure they also taste it. Because they say if they taste what you are eating, they cannot bewitch you, isn't it? And that is culture. But we are made to believe that another culture has a stronger witch than yours. But is it also wrong to have witches? That is the question about culture. Is it wrong to have witches? Do we have good witches? As African, that is African science, isn't it? Yes, we don't have good bad witches, and we don't have good witches. We have both. The question is, what are you looking for in the witch? Yeah, are you going to the witch to get cure for something, or are you going to the witch to be able to make another person have a bad domain? So it is not the witch who is bad. It is you who has got bad intentions who is bad. Are we together? So how to integrate arts and culture in education? In basic education, one, using film, performance, visual arts, games, and sports as a teaching tool. The other day, my daughter was making the solar eclipse. And I told her, these planets, what are their names? And she started naming them. And I say, which song have you been taught on how to cram them? And she was like, song? No, we just cram. I'm like, no, it is easier with a song. So I told her, Min Venus and Masera, Joshauri yako usonepi. Because personally, I could not arrange the solar eclipse without singing that song. So I started doing Min, Venus, and because in my head, something I was taught in primary school over 20 years ago, the song stuck up to now. Are we together? Even math. Some of us were terrible in math. Me, I was not good in math. But I remember some teachers because of the things they taught us. You get it? Millicenti, decimeter, deca, hecto, kilo. You get it? Then I started writing millicenti, decimeter. You get it? Because music as a culture shaped my upbringing. And when someone like me is being taught, when music is used, it makes me understand things better and it simplifies it much, much more. You get it? But then now you come, my daughter is cramming, she's like, Mars, Venus. She's dying, cramming all these things. Yet, she could just sing it and write it. So, if we use music to integrate it as a teaching tool, it will make it easier for our students to understand, for our pupils to cram, to understand those things. Because once you get the music in your head, you have already taught it. So, music is just to ingrain it in the memory, to make it be able to come back very fast when they need to. We can also integrate it in the class exercises and assignments. Give real examples within our community when teaching social studies and history. Who are our heroes? Martin Luther King. Eh? Is Martin Luther King our hero as Kenyans? No. Let's look back to our culture. Who are our heroes as Kenyans? Who is your hero in your community? You get it? Like, I mean, we can say Luanda Magere was a Luo hero, isn't it? Koitalel Arap Samoei, Kinjeketile for the Tanzania, Mekatilili Wamenza. We are not using our heroes to teach history to our children. We are telling our children about the first person to go to Mars. What about the first woman to overturn the British rule? Yeah? So how are we teaching our children? We have got heroes within us, within our communities, even when we were growing. But why aren't we using our heroes to teach history, to teach social studies? When we are talking about social studies in the family, When we talk about the family tree, why don't we look at aunties? In African culture, we don't just have aunties and uncles. We have the side of the mother are aunties and uncles. The side of the father are not aunties and uncles. Those are big dad. You get what I mean? Why don't we teach them like that? That is your big dad or that small dad. Isn't it? The side of your mother you have uncles and big mom and small mom. But we now collapse all of them into aunties and uncles. Yet it is not just about the language. Sometimes, yes, we might miss the language, like our children are struggling to learn our language, but are we making them understand our lineage in the way they should understand it? Empower patriotism in our children. Like avoid accent shaming. That already was talked about in the morning. One day I went to a TV station and as we were talking live, then the lady says, "You really have such a low accent." I said, "Yeah, I'm a Luo." Then she's like, "Yeah, and you have such a low accent." I said, like, "Yes, I am a Luo." When she did it the third time, she realized she was the one who was, and people started commenting, "Yeah, she's told you she's a Luo." I'm like, "Yeah, I am proudly Luo." Because, I mean, what's the big deal in having an accent? I am a Luo with a Luo accent, proudly so. So sometimes we need to avoid accent shaming. Embrace it. Me and even my children, I'm putting this into my children. When somebody tries to shame you, proudly embrace it. You get what I mean? Don't say, "Oh, why so-and-so has called me this." Say, "Yes, I am." Yeah? Like we had, when we were in school, there were some girls who were very tall. Then you're told, "You're so tall." You say, "Yes, I am tall." "You're so dark." "Yes, I am dark." As in, it's not a bad thing. "You're so brown." "Yes, I am brown." "You're so fat." "Yes, I am fat." As in, embrace it. When you embrace it, somebody has nothing else to use to shame you. Okay? Then stop punishing kids for speaking mother tongue. We were punished. I was especially punished on every Wednesday in my school was Kiswahili Day. I can assure you that day I could take the disc in the morning and I decided I'm not giving it to anyone else. Because even if I give it to somebody else, it will be returned to me. So I decided I am not giving it until evening so that I could just be caned once the following day. So if we stopped punishing kids for speaking mother tongue or for behaving in ways that depict our culture, then it will be able to help us integrate arts and culture, even in their homeworks, even the things that they are doing. When they are sent home to do homeworks, what are we giving our children? When, let me say, your child is sent home to weave a mat. Are you giving them paper to weave, or are you giving them strings to weave with, or are you giving them that old sisal to weave with? What materials are you giving them to make them understand our culture? Are you telling them the stories as when you were kids like this? Like when one day I told my child, "Please get me some water." They're like, "Wait a minute." I told her, "Mama, when I was growing up, I could never tell my mother, wait a minute, when she sent me for water." And she looked at me and said, "Yeah, so I don't expect you to make me wait a minute. So go and get me water because I am your mother." And she had to stand and go get for me water. I told her, "No, you don't tell your mother, wait a minute. Especially if you're not doing something that I'm the one who was told. If I was telling you to sweep, you can tell me, wait a minute. But you're sitting like me and telling me, wait a minute. Where? Yeah. Whose house?" You get what I mean? In our culture, we have to understand that respect for elders is very, very important. Encourage family engagements. CBC is very good at this. It has really encouraged family engagements. I actually like weekend homeworks. In our school with my children, we told the teacher, homeworks that require us to do together with the children, please don't give them in between the week. Because I cannot be in the jam in Nairobi, then I'm being told you need to print, I don't know what, come with this. So those ones we do over the weekend. So the weekend we have ample time to do this homework. My dear, let me tell you, that is when you realize, if you ever lied to your child that you are number one, they will know. CBC will expose you. So it encourages family engagements, but also during holidays. Are your family members sitting together to celebrate, to talk about old times? I come from a family where twice every year, the whole extended family, when I say whole extended family, it's like my father's cousins and their children. They decide whose homes they are meeting in. And people come like Friday evening, Saturday, and Sundays when they leave. And people tell stories. They tell a lot of stories. And that has made me learn a lot about my great-grandfather, my grandmother, and you know, the uncles and their lineage, where they came from. And so also, we can also do this by celebrating World Cultural Days. I'm so excited that the school where my daughter goes to, there are days when they're told to dress in cultural clothes. and they go to school like that. Though they are not told to dress in your cultural clothes, it's told come in the culture. So you can find like, my daughter can decide to wear like Maasai. You know, the other one decides to wear like Kikuyu or Kamba, and another one decides to wear like Indian. You get it? But in its own way, when they do that, it helps them understand that this is that tribe, this is that community. And also we need to understand that being tribal is not a negative thing. It is very positive to be tribal. So we need to celebrate ethnicity. You need to be proud of being a Kikuyu. You need to be proud of being a Kalenjin. You need to be proud of being a Kipsigis. Whatever it is. Sema sisi tunakunywa maziwa, tunapenda maziwa. You get what I mean? Be proud of your community, because at the end of the day, it is your identity. But now in higher education life, like here at the university, we can initiate common units on culture for all students. At KCA University, we have a unit called Culture and Sustainable Development. In that unit, we teach students everything about UNESCO, everything about our traditional culture, everything about all these treaties, about trade and the treaties and how they've worked, everything about our foods and culture, so as to give the student an identity. And we give them assignments, both written and even practical. We tell them we want you to write a story, you want you to create a performance to do it. And that is not just for the students taking performing arts. That is a common unit for all students taking Bachelor of Arts, even education arts, social sciences and humanities. It is a common unit. And if we could have more of these units, as a first year, second year, that student who came without knowing their identity, it will ignite something, making them want to know. Now I've been given an assignment to go and research on a myth in my community. And the teacher tells you, I don't want a myth on Luanda Magere or Mekatilili or these ones we know. I need a new myth. It means they have to go and talk to somebody. Because you don't want the whole class coming to talk about Luanda Magere. So you tell them, these ones will not be presented. They have been presented before. Those ones are for the teacher to use. So you come with a new one. And they go and research, and they come with stories until you're like, what? I didn't know that. So it helps us, it helps the students to be able to find their identity, to find their sense of belonging, and also to get to find their roots. Celebrating Culture Week. I know it started with Kenyatta University many years ago, but right now a lot of universities are celebrating it. It is important that we embrace it, and we do not just add in things that are contemporary. It is important that in the Culture Week, we add elements of the traditional foods, the traditional wear. We should have a specific day where we are sure today all staff and students are dressing in cultural wear. Not just saying there's going to be a fashion show and foods being paraded there. Can all staff and students dress in cultural wear on that day? Yeah? And cultural wear is not kitenge. Yes, yeah? If we can have that, because nowadays you'll find that cultural wear, every man will come with a shirt like that. That is cultural wear. No, what if the men, you wear that shirt of yours, but you add something, you walk with a rungu on that day? Isn't it? Yes, you wear a color, yeah, so that we feel it. Embrace ethnic associations for positive values. In every institution, higher education institution, it is important that they have those ethnic associations. Abagusi Student Association. You get what I mean? Yeah, Ameru Students Association. Because in those groups, one, they are able to understand their traditions. They are able to understand their political leadership. They are able to understand even their current political representations. It is not just about helping them get bursaries. They also are able to understand where they come from. What crops are growing right now in your area? What is the kind of climate? Right now everyone is saying it's hot everywhere. But even if it is hot everywhere, different things are growing in different areas. What is your main cash crop? What is your main stable crop in your area? Those are things that students can be able to discuss and understand their ethnic backgrounds. You can also encourage free and fair student elections. Now, this is where I'm talking about culture is not just tradition. If we start making students understand the importance of free and fair elections, we will not be having problems in choosing leaders, having free and fair elections. But if at this level, we are rigging in student reps, then we cannot be complaining up there because habits die hard, isn't it? Yeah. Habits become beliefs, then we start saying lazima tuibe, and then that becomes a system. Then we also need to employ staff from various cultures. That way, when they are in the staff room, and even when the students come, they all feel like, I am not the one who is different. In that university, there are people from all cultures from Kenya, and I can interact with everyone freely, and so every student and every staff member feels they are accommodated. Encourage use of African references in learning. Major problem. Major problem. Yeah. Even I don't know whether there are PhD or master students here, but even for us as lecturers, in your course outline, which reference have you put? Have you put African writers? Because we cannot say the African writers have not written anything in that area. I mean, we got independence how many years ago? We celebrated, how many years are we celebrating? 60. Yes. So you want to say for 60 years, no African or Kenyan has written something in your area. You just keep quoting, Europeans and Americans. So if we start with our course outlines, then the students might feel the need to do that. Personally, I tell my students, if you are quoting, I need to at least 2/3 African writers. Yes, 2/3 African writers. Mwalimu, there are no books. Have you read all the books? Yeah, that's the question. Use Kenyan or African texts for studies, criticism, and history. How much, I don't know, do we have literature lecturers in the room? Are you using African texts? Yeah, because if we use African texts more, the students will want to read more of African texts. There's a friend of ours, I'm forgetting his name, he said, Kenyan filmmakers just use, I don't know, they don't tell our stories African way. I was like, I am sure the last movie he watched could be Nairobi Half-Life. But I said I'll ask him, but he's not here. How many Kenyan films have you watched in the last 2 years? How many films have you watched in the last 2 years? Have you watched any? How many theater productions have you watched? Apart from Drama Festival, Achana Drama Festival. That one of you going to the theater or you going to watch a film, how many have you? So when we also look at higher education, we encourage anthropological studies. When we were joining campus, when we read the word anthropology, we used to laugh at those people. Just because the word looked very heavy. Like, what are you studying? Anthropology. Ha, 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 ha. Anthropology, But my sister studied anthropology. I wish I studied anthropology. Oh. Let me tell you, some of these studies make you understand life in a very broad aspect. Anthropology, of course, there's archaeology, linguistic anthropology, social cultural anthropology, so whichever line. And then we have what? Theological studies, studies of origin, nature, destiny of human beings. We need to encourage liberal art studies like sociology, psychology, literature, creative arts, performing arts, and economic studies. If you look at the rich people, the greatest leaders, what did they study? Liberal arts, political studies, you get what I mean? Anthropology and the like. Because they just wanted to understand human way of life. Yeah? Then, of course, we also have drama therapy. We need to encourage people to study drama therapy, African studies, African spirituality, traditional African medicine. Currently, it is only in JKUAT where we have traditional African medicine. Then translation and transcription, that's also very important. The youth today are so misunderstood because they express themselves fully through fashion, language, and their lifestyle. And we're like, huyo venye anajivaa, mtoto wa nani naona amepotoka. That boy is painting his nails. Yeah? And we start wondering where they are going with that. But they are expressing themselves, isn't it? They prioritize themselves above others. They are able to say, no, you guys go, I'm tired. But the older generation, we don't know how to say, no, like, I'll see. You get it? We find it so hard to say, no, I don't think I'll make it. We just say, I'll see. Then you struggle, it disturbs you for a whole week, then you just drag yourself, saying, wacha tuniende kwa sababu ni nani. But the younger generation easily say, no, I don't think I'll make it, I'm tired. I think, what will you be doing? No, I'll just be chilling, but I think I need to take a break. The older generation, we don't know how to do that. You force your whole family to go with you to an event because that is a family friend and you all need to go. Sometimes we just need to say, Madam, I can see you're tired. Wacha mimi niende na nani. If you have 3 children and only one wants to go, just go with that one. The younger generation easily say, no, I can't. Yes, I will. They love collaboration and getting together. And we see this as something strange, yet in our traditional African community, getting together was a very common thing. People used to get together to dance, to tell stories, to do what? To just enjoy and gossip. Nowadays, when we see the young people getting together to do the same, we say, wamepotokwa. Yet they are the ones who are keeping to our culture without us knowing. They live very carefree lives. This has got positive and negative attributes. Yeah? They are very carefree, meaning sexually they are just having sex like it's food. But also, their living carefree lives makes them connect to people of diverse cultures and all that. So when you look at their life, it could be positive and negative depending on how it is interpreted. They also avoid conflict a lot. They don't like confrontation. And when we look at our traditional African culture, the one thing is Ubuntu, isn't it? Keep peace, make peace. But the new generation are very culture-oriented and they have embraced a number of ways of life, focusing on creativity, art, and self-actualization. The only difference is they cannot live a life they have not been given. They cannot live the traditional African life because as parents, we have not shared that with them. So what we give them is what they are able to remodel and work on. So when we look at their life, how much have we given them to form as a basis? And my final words, at the end of the day, it's people that matter. How we are treated and how we treat others is what matters when we create connections. If we focus on teaching the next generation on how to live inclusively, then we should not worry about losing our cultures because we will be evolving. And finally, there's a reason why there are no more dinosaurs. How many of you know dinosaurs? Kwa picha too. There's a reason why there are no more dinosaurs, because we have to evolve and accommodate the new without forgetting the past. You see, tunawaona kwa picha, we have not forgotten it, but we have to accept that things have changed. There was no AI, there was no TV. Right now, we have to evolve and embrace what we have. And with that, I just want to say thank you, but I want to show you my film, my 2-minute trailer. Okay. The cursor has gone. Okay. Are you seeing the cursor? Okay. Okay. No, it's this one. Yeah. But so let's return it first. Okay. This is a Kenyan film that I'm launching on March 27th. We can switch off the lights. There was a light that was switched at that time. And it is in Luo. It is in Dholuo, but it has got English subtitles. Otis Janam is the lake man. Okay. Huh? Oh, there was a light that was switched off at that time. Okay, I'll just play it. Sound hakuna. There's no sound from my laptop. You don't have sound from my laptop? Yeah.
The best portrays
So this is a film. Yeah, thank you very much. This is a film. This is a 10 million budget film. So we are doing serious things outside here. Yeah. We will have another UNESCO meeting to discuss how I got the 10 million. But thank you so much for listening.
We love it. We love it. Thank you very much. A lot of applause for Daktari. That was very wonderful presentation. We have enjoyed it. If you have any question or any reaction, just keep it. Because we want to have all the presenters send their items. Then from there we are going to have one session for reactions and questions. We are moving to the first presenter, Dr. Nyandoro from Kisii University and Dr. Diana Mutuku from Kabarak University on use of mother language in the construction of cultural identity. Welcome, Daktari.
Thank you very much.
As you've been told, I'm George Ovara Nyandoro. And we're going to have a presentation with Diana Mutuku of Kabarak University. Earlier on in the Prof paraded
a very good team of
students. I'm glad that Diana is my student.
Now coming
at this point of the day, and especially considering the kind of conversations we've had since morning, you can begin to see my difficulties in the sense that a number of the things that we have to discuss have probably been conversed. But I hope that we'll be able to say something that we could.
I want
to begin from the point in which Zippy gave us that beautiful movie. By the way, Zippy and I learned our ropes as young people at Kenyatta University back then. I found my way to Kisi and she found her way to Elsewhere. Now our title is Use of Mother Language in the Construction of Cultural Identity. And I would like to say that it is anchored on 3 pillars. Number one is the understanding that a cultural identity, once constructed,
properly constructed, that is,
may help us develop our languages. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is that the languages themselves have been developed, properly speaking, will then ensure that we understand ourselves better. So in other words, it is we having an identity in ourselves, and because of that, being able to develop the languages. But once the languages themselves have been developed, then they become the anchor upon which we can understand ourselves.
The third pillar is that
the question of identity is multiple and it's flexible. In other words, when you're talking about an indigenous identity, you are also aware that concurrently you operate in a national space as well as a global space. So that at no point should you want to think that the identity is a closed-up matter that does not engage in conversation with other identities. Now, since morning, the discussions that we have had have kind of ended up with a question: how then do we deal with this? And unfortunately, some of the speakers have already left, some of them who presented very nice frameworks, methodologies, and so on. But the question at the end of it was, how do we deal with this?
What is the problem? And I would like to
encourage ourselves by saying that we are not the first ones to be in this situation. I know that the Vice Chancellor, our Vice Chancellor here set up a motion rolling earlier on I think it was either the Vice Chancellor or the Vice Chancellor who said that traveling in an aeroplane somewhere and then found that somebody was speaking in Italian. And I would like to say this. That we sometimes tend to think that we are the first people to be in this kind of conundrum. We are not. In fact, as we know, initially Greek was the major language in the Western Academy.
In other words, if you are
a Roman and you didn't know Greek, you are considered illiterate.
So the
Romans had to move away from Greek and establish their own identity by using Latin. So Latin became then the big thing in Europe. But then see, unlike Greek, Latin was a language of expansionists, of imperialists. So Greeks were not exactly that. I know that you remind me that Alexander the Great tried to use expansionism, but then again, there's a difference between the Roman Empire and the manner in which it managed its political affairs from the manner in which the Greeks did. Now, Latin then became the big thing. And if you have read Ngugi wa Thiong'o's We've Got Child, and you have seen Njoroge having problems in learning English, you might think that that's a problem among the students in Kenya only. It's not. If you read Charles Dickens, David Copperfield has the same problems as a student of English, an English student trying to learn Latin. He's also having the same problems of how do I deal with language stuff. So this is something that has been there historically. The European countries had to decide of themselves that we have to move away from this colonial language, from this imperialistic language, and they began to have their own languages, namely English, French, Italian, and so on and so forth. In fact, if you think about it, and there's somebody here who was talking about the question of perfect English and so on and so forth. When the Americans drifted away from England, they developed their own kind of English. The American English is quite different, not just in pronunciation, but even the choice of diction.
from the the British English. So in other words, this is a kind of search for identity by understanding that the language you speak speaks to who you are, makes you different from somebody else, and makes you then feel independent from someone else. But when we came to Africa, we got a problem. In 1962, young people, a very young generation of writers from Africa, met in Makerere to discuss then what they call as the Makerere Conference. And soon after that, a young man called Obiwali, a Nigerian, wrote to transition the journal that at that time was important for literary critics, and argued that it is time for us to begin to pay attention to African languages. Unfortunately, before we could get to know what Obiwali had in mind, Obiwali went to politics. And you know what politics does to intellectuals. So he left the space. Many years later, and there was a colleague here from film scholarship who talked to length about this. Ngugi wa Thiong'o picked up this. But before I get into Ngugi wa Thiong'o, when Obiwali wrote this to transition and said, it is time that we begin to develop our languages, Chinua Achebe said, what the hell? I have been given English and I intend to do unknown things with it. In other words, I've been given English and I'm not going to give up on it. That was his initial response. Many years later, Ngugi wa Thiong'o was approached by his neighbors. Please, if we get to a few minutes to the time, you indicate to me. Just a few minutes to the time. Let's say 5 minutes to the time. You indicate to me. So Ngugi wa Thiong'o was approached by a neighbor from Kamerithu. At that time, Ngugi was the chairman of department at the University of Nairobi, and he drove faithfully every morning from Kamerithu, his home, to the University of Nairobi, where he was chairman of department. And the neighbor approached him and asked him to join a cultural organization for Kamerithu as the head of the education committee. But then, because Ngugi was busy as chairman of department, he decided to invite a colleague of his called Ngugi wa Meri, and said, since you are in charge of that thing they used to call as adult education, I don't know whether it still is there. He said, since you are teaching adult education at Kamerithu, why don't you join me and become the chairman of this cultural group that they want us to join? That is what birthed the performance of Kamerithu as we know it today. Now, what Zip is trying to do with his visual here of using Dholuo. What Ngugi did not know, that that performance of Kamerithu and the radical views that Ngugi has about colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism, and so on, the government of that time would be so upset with him that they would detain him. And this is what made him begin to think seriously about the role of language in our self-identity. How do we use language to ensure that the complex discussions that are up there can get to our people down there? This is really the point at which Ngugi decided that there must be something about language which we are not paying attention to, which is that language can hide the things that government can do, language can hide the things that the court process can do, language can hide the things that the international discussion can do. In other words, it's always very important that we are able to reach to the people on the ground. And if you do that, you will liberate them. And this is the fear that the government had, and they had to get Ngugi into jail. And because of that, Ngugi then became a serious ambassador for the need for indigenous languages. I would have gone into these details a little more had I more time, but I will leave it for today. However, a question was asked here severally, and I want to address myself to it. How do we move from the abstract ideological discussion of language, for instance, like the case is now, to a more pragmatic position? And how do you convert these things that seem impossible to achieve? How do you make them achievable? And I want to invite you to think about when we were growing up, we had KBC, which had different languages. KBC, which had different languages. In those days, KBC was the only radio station. But those languages were merely for addressing themselves to mambo ya funeral arrangements. And then Rose Kimotho, and I think that somebody should do a research on this lady. Rose Kimotho did something that had not been done. She came up with the Kameme FM, all right? She came up with the Kameme FM. And this is why, for me, this is important. And this is why, for me, this is not just an academic discussion. An entrepreneur, one of the best, I think, in this country, called Macharia, the owner of Citizen, picked that model and had radio stations across the country in different languages. Why am I inviting this discussion, and why am I tying it together with the conversation of Ngugi wa Thiong'o from California? Ngugi here is being an ideologue, is engaging with the ideological reasons why language is important. But here is Macharia, who tests the idea, because the big challenge that Ngugi had over and over is that, can this thing work? Macharia gets it, and he's getting money out of it. So yes, it's working. I mean, Ramogi FM, Ramogi TV, and now they're doing what? They are doing those translations of these Indian things into Ekegusi, in Luo, and so on and so forth. Do they have viewership? They do. They're making money. So can that language work? Can the indigenous language work? It is working. Rose Kimotho made us know that it can work. Now, to rush into the conclusions then, why is this discussion of language and identity important? Number one, language then is a window of our cultural understanding. You know, when Zippy was discussing here, she said a number of things which I think we'll take tea with her, and I will have a conversation later. We have got to isolate the stereotypes that we peddle around, which are products of our politics, from the real culture which will emanate from our languages. If you get to our languages, if I get to an understanding of the Luo in its true organic sense, I will understand the Luo in a way that is very different from probably the political kind of discussions that we have. So this is the first point at which I think that then we can link language into identity, because it speaks to me and it tells me that if I truly understand Ekegusi, I will understand myself. I will understand my history. I will understand the anthropology of what makes me who I am. The second point that is important in my view is that language, especially when we elevate the discussion of language and identity, we enter into the discussion of the power discourse between societies. In other words, when Rome decided to leave away Greek and deal with Latin, they were elevating themselves and saying, we are as good as the Greeks. In other words, they were dealing with the question of the hierarchy, the cultural hierarchies that we have, which make, the disc that Zippy was talking about earlier, where you spoke your language and you felt inferior and you felt, backward and primitive, and you had to be punished for it. But then the moment we start embracing it, you are telling us that with your Ekegusi, you are on equal platform with the guy who speaks in English. For me, that is the second important point, that it elevates the discussion of cultural hierarchy, and therefore suggests that there needs to be justice across the world on equality of languages. From a linguistic perspective, I know that the politics of it, what English can do from a political scenario, what Kiswahili can do from a political scenario, might not necessarily be what Ekegusi can do. But from a linguistic perspective, the two are equal. The third point I want to then point out is that it then enables us to have an inward understanding of our cultural spaces, but also it increases the dialogue of cultures. Earlier on, I had a very interesting discussion with my friend over lunch hour. And the question was, what happens if we elevate Kikamba, we elevate Ekegusi, we do all those kinds of things? If you are writing Ekegusi, aren't you then closing out on the Mkamba, on the Mogikoya, and so on and so on. And my question was this: how is it that I am able to engage with Leo Tolstoy, who writes in Russia? How is it am I able to engage with the best writers in French? Because we have what we call as a meta-language, which is translation. Translation enables languages to enter into dialogue with one another. The moment you start saying, what is the equivalent of this word in this language? And you walk around and you walk around and you are not sure, you are beginning in a conversation. The two languages are engaged in a conversation. And I think that that kind of conversation is important in my view. Now, finally, language then can be seen as a kind of technicolor, If you look at the rainbow has got very many colors, you know? And the beauty of the rainbow is because of its diversity of colors. So the moment we say that let us have all these languages participating and bringing us their diversity, their richness, we are saying they are making our world more colorful. In conclusion, I want to end my very brief discussion by saying this, that all forms of knowledge, scientific, technological, cultural, begin with self-identity. All forms of knowledge. If you're thinking about a car, by the way, a car is an expression of walking. An airplane is an expression of walking, because walking defines traveling. And so the technological advancement is merely to enhance this thing that is in your body, and so on and so forth. So in other words, if you don't strive to self-identity, and if you cannot therefore project that identity from yourself, you have no capacity. You will never have any capacity of knowing the next person. And since this is a very Christian institution, I will refer you to the Bible. Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. He did not say, love yourself as you love your neighbor. It must begin with you. Understand yourself, then you will have the capacity to understand the next person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nyandoro. Very informative, very informative. You can make money out of our mother tongue. So we will continue with our program. We shall have Dr. K. Simiyu. Soita Simiyu. You can come forward quickly. You have 15 minutes to present. Let us have Soita Simiyu to set up. And you have 15 minutes in Soita.
Karibu Soita. It's our Anzac program. Sindio. Okolo play. Nyasaya kulinde. Asante.
Okay, language advocates present today, good afternoon. Sorry, it's evening, good evening. So my name is Soita Simiyu Walter from the School of Education, Humanities and Social Sciences, Department of Education Arts, majoring in English and Literature, second year, second semester. Today, I'm here to discuss or to present to you a research paper on language and sustainable development. That is, we are focusing on the interconnectedness. As far as most advocates or delegates that are present today have been talking about implementation of multilingualism and local languages in schools, I want us to look at the core bit of it, that is the interconnectedness between language and sustainable development, as we can get from UNESCO. So I will start by looking at the abstract, or I'll give you the abstract bit of it. And I'll say, as the world celebrates International Mother's Language Day, this paper explores the intricate relationship between language, culture, education, and the pursuit of sustainable future, drawing upon United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, that is the SDGs, as a framework. I argue that fostering linguistic diversity plays a crucial role in empowering individuals, enhancing participation, and developing critical competencies necessary for achieving sustainability. As well, recognizing the challenges posed by language endangerment, resource limitations, and discriminatory policies, I offer recommendations for actions emphasizing the crucial role of multilingual education, inclusive public spaces, indigenous language support, and intercultural dialogue in harnessing the potential of language for sustainable development. This paper, therefore, urges that policymakers, educators, and communities to recognize and leverage the power of linguistic diversity as a cornerstone of a just, equitable, and sustainable future. As advocates for a just and equitable world, we gather at this UNESCO panel, not just to celebrate the Symphony of Languages, but to recognize its profound impact on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. This paper, like a conductor's score, lays out the melody of this connection, highlighting the empowering potential of multilingualism, the challenges that threaten its harmony, and the actions that we take to create a more inclusive and sustainable future. From the methodology part of it, evidence was gathered from literature review, goal analysis, argumentation, and critical analysis. And the results were the power of language diversity in development, language empowering individuals, language strengthening in communities, the challenges and threats, then composing a symphony of solutions. As well, you cannot just talk about the challenges of multilingualism, or rather the challenges of implementing these, but we also need to look at the symphony and the solutions that must be brought about into space. Okay. So number one finding is the power of language diversity. The world speaks over 6,000 languages, each unique and valuable. Linguistic diversity reflects cultural richness and identity. Languages are tools for communication, expression, and knowledge transmission. The world being woven with a thread of diverse languages, each language represents a unique cultural heritage as a way of understanding the world. Languages are not just tools for communication, but also for expressing ourselves, sharing knowledge, and connecting with others. Number two, it's about language empowering individuals. Multilingual education boosts learning outcomes and critical thinking skills. That is trying to relate what you learned from the perspective of your first language, the L1. Individuals can access information and express themselves confidently in their mother tongue. For instance, if you're given a question that is a mathematical question, you can be able to relate and express yourself confidently. If maybe perhaps you don't understand the bit of it in English, you'll try and look at it from the perspective of your mother tongue. That one will help you bring about critical analysis of the question. We have language skills, enhanced employability and economic opportunities. For instance, we are having online job opportunities at the moment, that is online transcription jobs. You might apply for a job that might require you to have knowledge in French. You might apply for a job that might require you to have a knowledge in Swahili, and it's an online job, so it's creating about employability and economic opportunities. Embracing multilingualism empowers individuals by unlocking their full potential. When individuals can learn and access information in their mother tongue, they are more likely to succeed in education and participate actively in the society. Multilingual societies open doors to better job opportunities and contribute to economic growth. Next, it's languages strengthening communities. Multilingualism fosters intercultural understanding and collaboration. That means you are able to relate to different cultural perspectives, and you can easily fit into any society that is bound by your way. Diverse language contributes to inclusive and peaceful societies. Indigenous languages hold valuable knowledge for sustainable practices. Therefore, languages are bridges that connect us across cultures and communities. By understanding and appreciating different languages, we can build empathy, respect, and collaboration. This is essential for creating inclusive and peaceful societies where everyone feels valued and heard. Additionally, indigenous languages often hold unique knowledge about sustainable practices and local ecosystems, making preservation crucial for achieving sustainable development. So we can gather evidence from different educational initiatives that have been able to succeed under multilingual competency. That is, for example, we have India's multilingual education program that was started by India's Sava Shikra, which integrates local languages into primary education, leading to significant increases in literary rates and educational attainment. As well, we have International Baccalaureate, the IB program, which emphasizes multilingualism and cultural understanding, equipping students with skills and knowledge to effective addressing global challenges and contribute to sustainable development. As well, we have in South Africa, it is utilizing diverse languages in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, facilitating healing and reconciliation after apartheid by allowing individuals to express their experiences and fostering empathy across communities. That is a research by D. Croce, 2000. As well, we also have the challenges and threats to these languages. We have language endangerment threats, discriminatory language policies which exclude marginalized communities. Then we have the digital divide limits, access to multilingual resources and opportunities. Then we need to get the solutions. What are the solutions to these challenges? As many speakers that have spoken or talked before me, they were bringing about some solutions for the implementation of this, and they talked about investing in teacher training for multilingual education and other diverse things, such as we had formal, informal teaching and trainings, developing diverse learning materials in local and indigenous languages, handling technology for language learning and knowledge sharing, advocating for inclusive language policies that celebrate diversity. So I will conclude by saying the Symphony of Languages echoes far beyond classrooms and community gatherings. It harmonizes with the pursuit of sustainable development, empowering individuals, forging bridges of understanding and safeguarding invaluable knowledge. While challenges like endangerment threaten this harmony, solutions like inclusive education policies and accessible technology weave a path towards a more just and sustainable future. Let us celebrate the tapestry of voices, commit to safeguarding each threat, and collaboratively compose a future where linguistic diversity becomes a cornerstone of a flourishing world for all. This requires action and not just an applause. Let us move forward, not as separate instruments, but as a unified orchestra, where the melody of diverse languages harmonizes with the symphony for sustainable development. Thank you very much. May God bless you. May God bless UNESCO and bless Kabarak University at large.
That's wonderful. See me, you. It's me, you. So you see me, you, and it's me, you. That's how we interpret. Look. Thank you. Let us appreciate Mr. Simiyu for that presentation. We have come the end of the presentation, so maybe we can get now the reactions and questions from the members on those who presented, the three who are presented. So who has a question? Thinking mlikuwa mnaandika mahali maswali.
Yes, I do. I have a question which can be answered by either Dr. Zippy or Dr. Nyandoro or any other person. This is a discussion. I'm just wondering. When we were at independence, we were being discouraged to speak mother tongue because of ethnicity or tribalism, that it would break down our community or enhance tribalism or ethnic barriers, and that is not what the government wanted. So, Dr. Zipporah, you have just mentioned that we should encourage groups in our universities of students who form student bodies along the lines of their ethnic groups. Wouldn't that be a contributory factor to tribalism or ethnic tensions? That's my question.
Thank you. Any other? You can react on that, Daktari.
Thank you very much. First of all, I believe the word tribalism is a colonial word that is meant to make you feel that your tribe is wrong. So when we start from there, let's look at our culture and ethnicity in a proud way, not as something to be ashamed of. Tribalism gives a negative connotation to our cultures. So let's start with attitude change. Speaking mother tongue, preventing us from speaking mother tongue was a way of colonizing us. We need to decolonize our minds from there and embrace our mother tongue as our identity. I think a lot of these things, this is the unconsciousness of the colonization that happened to our forefathers and our grandfathers, effect on us. We are at a space where we are at the same level with the colonizers. So we need to start looking at ourselves in a different way without looking at it as, that is tribalism. Let's look at it, that is embracing our ethnic communities. When our students have got ethnic, that's why I'm not even calling them tribes, because the word tribe has been used negatively by the colonizers. Let's look at it as ethnicity. Those are ethnic community groups, meaning it helps them find their identity, helps them find who are their leaders, how are their elders elected, what are the kind of businesses they can do even to make their communities and counties grow. So those are the things that they should be discussing, because if I am coming from the lake, let me say Nyanza Luo Students Association, in the same group with the Meru Students Association, the Meru student will not know how to tap in from the lake. The Luo might not even know how to tap in from the Mira kind of harvest. So that is why they need to meet so that they understand our climate, this is the cash crop. How can we use it to enable our community become better? So yes, when they meet there, they can discuss in their own language. So I think a lot, the number one thing, even if we were discussing today, Holly here, is it is not even about the language that our children need to be learning in school. I think the one thing that the children need to learn in school more is the decolonization of the mind, to be made to embrace that their culture is good, not so that they appreciate, I should do my degree in Kenya, I should not wish to go abroad. I should learn my language and not wish to just speak French, you get it? Because English already is universal. But why do they just want to speak French, German, and not learn another language? Let me say like Zippy learning Kikuyu, Zippy learning Kimasai. We need to embrace our ethnicity in such a way that when somebody speaks about it, We do not think of anything negative first. When we think about another community, we think about the good things in it before we think about the negative put in our minds, because we never even experienced those things. A lot of us did not experience tribalism until post-election violence. Yeah, so we can only speak at it from that perspective, because we lived with our neighbors harmoniously. So that is something that was planted in our minds, and that is what we need to remove from our mentality. And we can help our children and the students remove it from their mentality. Yeah.
Thank you. We can have next.
Mine is not a question, it's actually, a reaction. Would I say really appreciating the presenters? The question in the House was about the framework which was presented there. How do we customize it? Actually, it was asked in Kiswahili, and I can see from the discussions that we have, we are almost having the answers. How do we customize that framework into the national frameworks? And I want to really appreciate the presenters. Believe you me, as I was seated here, Zipporah, I looked around, nobody was dozing. Simiyu, please keep it up, an upcoming Dawn researcher. Even after eating the heavy ugali. That means these are very interesting discussions. I think, from such conversations, we are going to get a way forward, or how we are going to move. Because indeed, these are issues. Like, for example, I was thinking as I was seated here, you can imagine in our strength in diversity. And then because two of you are Luos, then here we are with my friend from the mountain. Then you quickly switch to your mother language, we automatically get delineated. So probably we even need ethics of mother language, Ethics, how do you practice the mother language, so that in our diversity, we have the strength, but it doesn't bring, that animosity or kind of, or when we are eating lunch at a table, and all of a sudden you switch to your mother language, you put off everybody else on that table. So I think as we move on with these kinds of conversations, we'll be able to see, nexus, or where we can be able to customize that international framework and nationalize it, localize it in a manner that it will strengthen us, but not weaken us the far we have come, because we know we have actually come along, in strengthening our diversity. So we hope that as we continue in the discussions, we'll get proper way forward. I think we just put a comma here. We will not stop here. Right. Actually, we were conversing with my colleague here that we think we need another meeting, whatever we would think of, just before the mother language next year. We need, another sitting and, deconstruct this framework and have better way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that addition. That's great. As she has said, that because Kenya is rich in culture, and we have a lot of diversity, and there's a lot to be done on even our curriculum. You'll find that our curriculum is it's a blanket curriculum, whereby you are asking somebody in Western about what is happening in Mwea, about rice. So you'll find that when you set a question like that in a national exam, the person who will get it right is the person who is near Mwea, other than the person who is struggling in Western, who doesn't know anything about Mwea, and you are asking a question, so you are generalizing everything. So we have even to customize this curriculum of ours so that it can address the immediate things that are happening. You said a question about a camel, and somebody has not even come up close to a camel. I remember being asked to draw something like a vehicle when I was in class 2, and I was from the bush, so I don't know how a vehicle looks like. So I drew a cow, because that's the only thing that can. So you see how the effect of the curriculum is as a blanket thing. Thank you for that. So I will invite the chair Professor Joel to sum up the day. Thank you very much. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Just give me a minute. Okay, I'll do two things. I'll just give a small remark and then close the meeting, but before that, I'll want to move a vote of thanks. I want to, first of all, thank the Vice Chancellor of Kabarak University, who agreed to be the chief guest, and also to team up with Kenatcom to facilitate this event. There was an agreement in the planning, and the good lunch that you enjoyed and the snacks and the tea was courtesy of Kenatcom and Kabarak University. I also want to thank the Deputy Vice Chancellor who worked with us many hours to make this program successful. I also want to thank the registrar who was also part of us and all the team that we met together. I may not be able to mention all their names, but they all contributed very well. I want to appreciate the Director of Quality Assurance and Standards from the Ministry of Education for coming to represent the Director General. Also, I want to thank the members from Kenatcom, led by Nancy Njeri Mbukwa. I think we got it right this time. We confused it during the launch, and then we are still confusing it. But now that you have frequented yourself in Kabarak, we will not forget that. I want to thank you with your team. Thank you, Emily Njeru, for coming. We really wanted to hear your voice, but you had an opportunity to talk, and we believe that tomorrow you will also have another time. I also want to appreciate the keynote speakers, Professor Yeke and Dr. Okoth. I think I'm getting it right this time. I'm told that Okoth is it means a lady, whereas Okoth is a man. And in all this, I want to also thank the presenters who made presentations, and more especially Walter Simiyu for that brave presentation. I told the students during one of the lectures, and I told them that we are having a celebration of this day if they could plan something and come and present. And I think there is something that we are seeing in this young man, which I think the future will tell. I want to also appreciate the staff. Thank you, colleagues, for coming and standing in with us. The students, I want also to thank you. And in all this, I want to say this. Amajawa muagongoi nete muren aktany. Amuko koyan opka kenyege boiboitu tugul eng betuni ne kagimi ke ngalale ngalek akobo kutit ab kamenyo. I'll try to interpret. I think this day would not have gone to be a mother language day without saying something about our mother language. I was saying that I want to thank you with something that is as big as a man and a cow. That is how we express in our language. A man and a cow has a lot of meaning for us, and especially the cow. In fact, we pride and say that our life is in the cow. And that is why you see a lot of what is going on in particularly that side of Baringo. It is because of the issue of the cow. I want to say that the presentations that we made today are very rich. It is going to enrich this particular celebration. And I believe, as Nancy has said, that we need another day so that we meet and talk together and even come up with something that will be guide the policy for our nation. And because tomorrow is another day, I want to appreciate you and say tomorrow there will be 2 presentations in the morning. We have a keynote speaker, and then we have 2 remaining people who were not able to present today, and then the party will begin. We just go into dancing and singing and enjoying ourselves until 11:30, and then from 11:30 we also go and enjoy ourselves in the chapel. Here in Kabarak we have a practice that Wednesday from 11:30 to 1, everybody, the offices close and we assemble to give God thanks and to appreciate what He's doing for us. It is a practice here in Kabarak, and our visitors, you'll have a taste of that tomorrow. And they have made it to be cultural and to reflect what is going on in this event today. Otherwise, I want to appreciate you once again, and I want to declare this session for today closed. Thank you very much. Yeah, you may see that I'm a bit tired. It's because we have been running up and down for several days.
Thank you very much. We will welcome the Ukambani man. You can even pray in Kamba.
Thank you for everyone who has been with us since morning when we started by opening the language of heaven, and we agreed that that's the language we'll be speaking when we get there. It's a variant of the tongues of men. I would like to request us to stand up. We have been sitting for so long so that we can conclude with the word of prayer. I'm informed, I don't know whether it was an oversight, that the Department of Education Arts, Department of Education Science, you know what must be done. And so, yeah, thank you. In Kikamba we say Tuboye, so let us bow for a word of prayer. We thank you, God, for giving us the grace to be here from morning up to now. We thank you for everyone who came, everyone who participated in any way, and we thank you for the revelations that we have got concerning our languages as a gift to express you in the physical realm. And as we depart from this place today, let our love for us and our love for our neighbors and our love for our languages in whichever disposition go with us, Lord, that we may be proud of who we are, for we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Thank you, because this we ask and believe in Jesus' name. Yumwadhimwe noone mbarikiwe tupataniki.